How are y'all doing? This is Red. I really want to just talk to y'all about something that I read probably about 6 years ago. Um, it's an article. It's a fairly long article. For me, it took me about 2 hours to read it, but it's called "Lessons from the Argentinian Economic Collapse," and it's by a guy whose screen name was FarFel, but his real name is actually Fernando. He's from Argentina. I believe now he lives in Spain, but basically the premise of it is that you know uh, about a decade ago or so, he was on a bunch of survival forums, and he noticed that North Americans and a lot of Europeans are making a lot of mistakes in prepping and surviving and stuff like that. And he wrote an article about his hard lessons that he learned surviving the economic collapse in Argentina. And for those of you that don't know, basically in the early 2000s, there was a Great Depression in Argentina. And is a Great Depression very similar to ours in the early 1900s in the United States, but of course Argentina's was in modern times with modern technology and all the modern problems that we have. And basically, again, he wrote this article just to kind of stamp out all of the urban legends, basically, that a lot of survivalists and preppers have. Now you can go and Google lessons from the Argentinian economic collapse by FarFel, and you can find his article all over in forums and stuff like that. I actually printed it out. I've made pamphlets. I've handed them out to friends just because it's such a good read. But basically, like I said, it took me about 2 hours to read it. And it took me about another 2 hours after that of just sitting there quietly reevaluating all of my preps. And I basically sold everything and got rid of everything and started all over again. And basically, FarFel, he says, what I'm wearing right here, having crap tons of guns and ammunition and stuff like that, that shouldn't be your first priority. Your first priority as a prepper and as a survivalist really should just be food and ways to entertain yourself that don't necessarily rely on grid power. So for those of us in 2020, especially with COVID-19 and everything like that, we've entertained ourselves with Netflix and Hulu and stuff like that, and that's all great and that's all dandy, but you need to have power in order to have those things. And sometimes in, say, an economic collapse where you might face an extremely high unemployment rate, utilities may skyrocket, you might have rolling blackouts, stuff like that. You may not be able to actually just have a TV or a computer on all the time. So maybe having a battery powered DVD player, stockpiling rechargeable batteries, having multiple ways to recharge those batteries. He talks about having a generator is great, but maybe for those of you that live in the inner city, a generator may not be the best idea. When a generator is running, it's alerting your neighbors that you have a generator. That does two things, basically. A, it shows your neighbors you're better prepared than they are. And C, or B, I should say, it alerts your neighbors right where those resources are. So within the first day or two of no power, sure, your neighbors might ask, hey, can you take this meat out of my freezer and keep it in your fridge since you have power? Can you hold my grandma's medication or her insulin since you have power? But after a week or so of no power, or maybe even several weeks, things might get a lot worse. And again, all your neighbors that have been using you or have been trying to use you for your power and your resources, they may need those resources. And again, they know exactly where you are. He talks a lot about trying to blend in the best you can. He talks a lot about how, for those of us that love our guns and love our gear, trust me, I love my gear. maybe having pistols and knives are necessarily more of a priority than having long guns and having, you know, assault rifles or defensive rifles or whatever you want to call them, just because you can't walk into a Walmart, for example, to buy salt and sugar and flour wearing full kit like this. You just can't do it. You know, you might have people freak out and call the cops on you, or you might have somebody that, you know, freaks out thinking you're an active shooter and they just pull out their concealed carry and pop one in the back of your head while you're staring at, you know, baking goods. So just stuff to think about there. Trying to, big thing is blending in. Big thing is philosophy of use. Why do I need this when I could get this instead? You know, I highly recommend everybody reading this. Again, I mean, it changed my life. I mean, I have a lot of things that FarFel, you know, talks against having, or not necessarily against having, but, you know, tries to show you to prioritize other things. But I have those other things. So having stuff like this for me, which is more fun than anything, it makes sense just because I already have those things. But, you know, I've talked to a lot of preppers and survivalists out there, and they don't. They'll have stuff like this. They'll have thousands of dollars worth of kit and guns and ammunition, and it is insane. But when it comes to their medical, nothing. When it comes to their food, you know, what's in their pantry, which is almost nothing. When it comes to batteries, when it comes to home entertainment, other than a computer or a desktop computer, when it comes to alternate means of feeding yourself, for example, like I have chickens and pigs, for example. Not a lot of preppers and survivalists get that far. And what FarFel says is, look, forget about the fun stuff first. Forget about that. Work on the stuff that actually puts food in your belly, and then go to the fun stuff. Anyways, sorry, this is kind of a long video. If I actually read this whole thing to you, like I said, we'd be here for 2 hours, and nobody really wants to watch a 2-hour video. I'll do my best to try to link one of FarFel's articles in the comments. Please feel free to like, subscribe to my content if you aren't subscribed. Ring the bell, because there's plenty of stuff like this that I try to add as regularly as possible. And with any further questions, just feel free to throw them in the comments. Thanks.